Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. I'm Aaron Locks. I am the CEO and founder of the National Academy of Athletics and your host for the Youth Sports Mastery here on the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Today, we have a special show, a lot of fun. I'm actually in San Diego, California, about to head out to conference, and love having special guests like Coach Ball. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing great, Aaron. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're going to have a good chat today. I'm really excited. What I want to do is we dig in, and every week we talk literally everything youth sports. If you're a rec director, a rec supervisor, you're a coach, you're an official, you're a parent that's got kids that play sports, or just like me, a sports nut, whatever the case is, we're going to talk it all. Today with Coach, we're going to really dig in to a lot of different topics. But first, let's go ahead and, Craig, if you don't mind, run that spot and let me know what's happening around here.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co, the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co, LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.
And just like that, that's what happens, right? You know, we don't take enough time when we do this to talk about Craig and the team behind what we do. You know, they're amazing, the support, the production, the communication, and all that. And I mean, I'm still blown away thinking about they just started basically in December. So we're talking 6 months later, and now we're on like surpassing 200th episode. Craig, you got the spot you could show about that? I think that's really cool to let everybody know. I mean, 200 episodes. Congratulations to the entire team for all that work everybody's been putting in.
From a simple mic in a rec center to a full-scale media company for the people who power our parks. 200 real stories, 5 original shows, and more to come, with one powerful mission: to lift up the voices of Parks and Rec professionals across the country. From maintenance crews and young interns and youths who love sports, to directors and public servants making a difference. We've built a platform that honors the unsung heroes behind every clean trail, every weekend tournament, every safe, welcoming park. This milestone isn't just about the content, it's about the people, the passion, the purpose. To every guest, listener, and supporter, thank you. The next chapter starts today. This is DPRS Media Co. Media for public service.
I'm not gonna lie, every time I hear about that, it just kind of gives me chills to think of that we're in such a big space and doing so much to give back to as someone who's been through the system for so long in youth sports in general, but just be able to give back to the community and what they do. So Coach Ball, as the head coach of Napa College, what I want to do is I want to allow you to kind of tell your journey, but I think it's important they know that you and I have met, maybe 1990. I think, like you said, we were about 7 or 8 years old, right, when we started. But we actually met, you may not remember the story, but we met competing and believe it or not, getting ready for intramurals basketball on campus at Sonoma State University. And I remember the day because country, what are you talking about, this country kid, right? And, you weren't 6'10" and overimposing this and that. But I'll tell you what, after we played one game, I knew one of my first picks every time was you, because I did not want to be against you. I wanted you on my team. I remember that back in the day. So everybody,
I definitely remember those. I definitely remember those days as well, Aaron. Aaron could really stroke the ball there, buddy. And I'd never heard of what a knee pit was until I met Aaron, because he had this move where when he would spin off of you, he would take his two fingers and he'd put them in the back of your knee so you couldn't take that first cheat step. And we would call it the knee pit spin.
There you go. Oh my God. All right. Enough about memory lane, right? If any refs out there, that is a foul, but I never fouled anybody in all the years playing. Coach, tell me, so they get to know a little bit more about your journey, where you're at now at Napa Valley, how you've been there, and just let's hear it. Roll it out for them.
Well, first of all, I started just like everybody else as a rec sports player. We didn't have Parks and Rec division up in small town of Redway in Humboldt County where I grew up, but we had the Kiwanis Club, the Rotary Club, and all these different clubs would sponsor a youth league, and I started playing the game of basketball there. One of my first influences was Jim Mayhew, who happened to be a good friend of mine's dad, and he lived across the street from the ballpark, and we would go pick up a basketball, we would go pick up a bucket of baseballs, and we would go out and use the parks. And so I commend everything that people at the Parks and Rec do, because the accessibility is just immeasurable for how it can influence young athletes. And so along my journey, I was, like you said, I was from a small town. I wasn't 6'10". I was a guy who enjoyed competing. And I remember you asked about how my journey of coaching started. I remember one day in the 5th grade, there were some kids who were doing some probably up to no good. And I said, nah, let's come over here and play some basketball instead. And so I remember one of the field aides had said to me, one of these days you're going to be a good leader because you see the right thing and you can influence people to do the right thing. And so that kind of stuck in my brain. And then in 6th or 7th grade, I met a man named Clint Bainbridge, who was our junior varsity basketball coach at South Fork High School up in Humboldt County. And he took me and a bunch of the older guys from town. Basically, in the small town, I was number 10. So I was the younger kid, but they couldn't play full court if the little kid didn't come play. So I grew up playing against guys like Gene Cotter, who ended up running Jones basketball camps, Rick May, who played at Humboldt State, Benny Kama played at Humboldt State. From that small community of 1,200 people, not students, people in the town. Wow. We had 4 or 5 college basketball players in the early 90s. And so Bain used to pack us in a van, and we talked about overnight camps, the experiences that we had. Right. He would drive us up to University of Oregon basketball camp with a man named Don Monson. Dan Monson's father used to coach at University of Oregon. So just to see him giving, we weren't his kids. His kids had graduated and his son was playing at Humboldt State, and he packed us in his Ford Astro, and we drove up there and played, and he would go home, and then he would come back on Friday and pick us up. And so, you always wanted to be in the free throw championship, be in the 1-on-1 championship, be in the 3-on-3 championship, be in all those championship games. Because if not, you're watching everybody on Friday, and Bain's driving 6 hours to come pick you up in Eugene, Oregon. And so just seeing him and wanting to pay that forward and emulating that, where if the keys, and nowadays you can't get away with it, but we would drive by his house and get the keys and just go play all day Sunday. Right. Yeah. And then I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to go play at Sonoma State University for Coach Pat Fuscaldo. During the recruiting process, I just saw him as this fiery Italian person who cared. You know what I mean? Like, there was no doubt that he cared. You may not like, I hesitate to say Bob Knight type situation, right? With the passion and the mentality, but you saw that he cared, and so I wanted to be a part of that. It drew me in that way, and so I played for him at Sonoma State for 4 plus a redshirt year, and then when I was done, I became a graduate assistant. Worked on my master's degree at Sonoma State, and to be honest with you, without these athletic opportunities, I don't think that if that carrot wasn't there, I don't know that I would have gone as far as I did with my education. And then as far as coaching goes, I went, took a road trip one time down the coast and stopped in Santa Barbara. And since I was there, I went and saw a guy named Bob Williams. He used to be the head coach at UC Davis.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if he remembers this, but I walked into his office and I started talking to him about basketball. It was the middle of summer, so he didn't have that much to do. And I asked him for advice, and he said, okay, so you're an assistant here. He said one thing that he always advises his young assistants is go slide over 24 inches. Go move into that head coaching chair. I don't care if it's a junior high. I don't care if it's rec sports. I don't care if it's city league. I don't care what it is. Take a head coaching position, because now every one of your suggestions becomes a decision. And so that weighs a little bit differently, right? As kids say these days, right? It hits different when you're the head coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I did. I reached out to actually you and a few other of my friends who I knew could help me along that journey, and a family named the Vreeberg family who knew you well,
Yeah.
told you about the El Molino head coaching job, and I took that job and coached there for 4 years. Went from 1-25 my first year, and I swear, as I think back, if I was a better coach, we could have been 2-24. But it was slim pickings. And then my last year, I believe we were 22-8. And won the league championship, and I moved on to San Diego City College and worked for a man named Mitch Charlins down there, and he taught me about the recruiting process. And Aaron, you know me well enough. I love this level because it's part of a journey, right? It's not an end point,
right?
But when I was an assistant at Sonoma State, it was most of the 90% of the players were done when they were done playing for us. This is, we take them from something. Okay, you don't have the opportunity that you wanted at a Division II, Division I scholarship level, NAIA, and whatever level that you can play at. Let me help you get the experience. You're missing something, whether it be academics, whether it be weight room, whether it be a skill set.
Right.
Let me help you along that journey, and then, to me, that's the pay it forward part of it that Bain taught me as a youngster.
It's amazing. The one thing in my mind about youth sports that elevates to your level at the junior college level and watching is the ability, just like you said, to change lives. And I think about, when I get guys come on and talk about just the connections that I've been able to give back and do stuff did for me, and there's a community there that's really amazing. And most coaches that I've seen particularly at your level, they're there for the right reason. Whatever those reasons are. And don't get me wrong, by the way, he's competitive. So don't think this is Mr. Nice Guy here. Although maybe I'm competitive too. I don't know. We can have another conversation about that. But just taking it from the Parks and Rec, because what I think has happened is it's become so competitive at such a young age, and the focus is on the wrong thing. When you were young and you were the little guy in the group, they weren't saying, well, we're going to groom you to play college basketball, right? What were they talking about? What were they teaching way back to when, right?
When I was it was very competitive. First of all, first and foremost, it was a competitive environment, right? And we learned camaraderie, you learn trust, you learn all these things. I always say you can learn a lot about a person by playing a game of basketball with them. So if you're going to try and cheat and cut corners, are you that type of person? Are you the type of person that's going to set a good screen for somebody and not expect anything in return? So it was just those, it was those altruistic ideas through sports. And just to piggyback on that, Aaron, there's over 100 in the state of California community colleges. I feel like we're almost an extent. The idea was to educate the masses, right? This idea came out in, I believe, the 60s, where they started, let's develop this where we can educate people for nearly free, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's almost an extension of the work that the people at the Parks and Recs are doing to give a great education at a discounted rate, basically, and touch the masses.
And the way that you do it, because I watch you. In fact, my son was going to play for you if it wasn't for the pandemic. But it's interesting to me to think about, like you say, that connection, drawing the line between the Parks and Rec, where we need kids out there playing. We need everybody playing. And the sad stat, which I've said before right now, 30 years ago, 9 out of 10 kids played a team sport each year. Now it's 5 out of 10 kids. And the problem is too much pressure, and it's elite club travel rather than like you did, which is play everything and get after it. So as a college coach, let's just jump off track for a second. If I was thinking about this, when you're looking for a kid that's going to come in, give me 3 or 4 things that you're looking for, because I know I'm going to speak for you. I know number one is a good human being, right? That I know that's on your list right off the top.
Yeah.
So if you're a parent out there and you got a kid, it's like, I want them to play. They got to be competitive. They got all these other things, but they got to be a human being. They got to be a good person first, right?
And you have to be passionate about what you do, right? And obviously a skill set is there, but a willingness and a determination to work hard at it. I'll tell you just a couple of things, 2 quick stories on, and I won't give names, but I've stopped the recruiting process 2 times for sure, and many others. These are just 2 examples. One, I went to a practice and watched a player practice, and he's running his sidelines. They've got to run 9 and 30, whatever it is, and he's coming this short on every line. So why are you doing all that work when you're not going to put in that much extra work? This much tells me about your character, right? And another one was we had a kid on a recruiting trip, and the way that he spoke with his mother was, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to bring in someone who talks to their mother like that. So most definitely you've got to be a willing worker, a good listener, and just someone who wants an opportunity. And like you said, the characters is paramount. Like I feel like we've brought in numerous players throughout the years that have been great characters, and almost every team is loaded with them. It's I put it this way, Aaron, is the last 2 years coming out of the pandemic, right? I've had I have a son and a daughter now. They're 6 and 11, and every single player on both of the last 2 years teams, if I had to pick up the phone and say, hey, can somebody babysit my kids? Is anybody available? And in the group chat, first come, first serve.
That's awesome. That says a lot about your process. I know talking to Coach Shaywitz, same kind of mentality about character, which is important as it goes. I also think, again, back in the Parks and Rec, I think there's a great way to learn there. For me, playing ball, we played on the playground, and I know that's not quite as available as it once was. But the next step is that Parks and Rec, be able to do that. So what would you say for you? I know that the relationships with your people is got to be with your kids and that, but is there one thing that you would say coaching at the JC, at the junior college level for you, like one thing that is just like the most rewarding piece of this puzzle for you?
The most rewarding is when I get I have a player right now who was, I consider them all still my players, right? He's been gone from me for about 10, 15 years now. And he's playing professionally overseas in Australia. Okay. And his name is Naaman Hightower, and he was at Vanden High School, and we went to go watch a different player at a practice, and he was over doing Micans on the sideline. I'm like, well, what's up with the 6'6" kid doing Micans? They're like, oh, he can't play yet. And so like, okay. And then we ended up taking a chance on him, brought him in, gave him an opportunity, and he was the kid that, we have a shooting machine, and I'd set him up on the shooting machine, and he had to learn how to catch first. So he would catch the ball with one hand and throw it to a shooter. You don't get to shoot. This is a catching machine for you, right? It's a jugs machine that the receivers use. And he would throw it and he would do it. Everything I asked of him, every little detail, he would do it. And so the rewarding part of that is to see from where he was, he ended up getting a scholarship to Sonoma State. And now he's playing professionally overseas. And not just the fact that there was success there, but he used to keep a notebook. And he wrote down nearly everything I said. We would have a class, and we'd show film, and I would speak a couple times a week. And he randomly will send me a picture of that notebook and or a quote that I said back 15 years ago now. And so the things that when you see players coming in that you coached 10, 15 years ago coming up and thanking you for what you did for them, and how you challenged them and how you prepared them for life. That is one of the biggest rewards for me. And then I have another quick anecdote. A young man who was almost late to practice. I was standing out in front wondering, where is he? And he came running across campus with a piece of paper. I'm like, oh man, did he get a ticket? Like, did he get, was this what is it? And from about 100 feet away, he's yelling at me, coach, I got a B. I'm like, okay, so my dad'd be mad. What's the situation there? He says, I've never gotten a B before. So I was like, okay, so that just changed everything in my mind. That community college, right, is about giving an opportunity for people to get their education,
Right.
and to provide them that with that carrot to, okay, without basketball, he would have never gotten a B in his life. So
Yeah.
that's kind of one of those rewards as well, is just paying it forward and having kids
I love
do things they're never thought they were capable of.
Yeah, I love that. And the connection, like you said, you're competitive, but it's more than just that, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's helping them learn to compete in the real game, which is life, right? You know, how do you compete doing that? I know for me now doing this, 4 decades, oh my goodness, at the National Camp of Athletics and previous with University of Sports, seeing kids that are not only in camp, but now I have kids that are working for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy moly. And it's so great because when I hear them say something that I said before, that it gives, right? Okay, we got this. We're rolling forward, and that's really cool.
The things that we say, we don't even realize, Aaron, that it's sticky, right? Something can be so poignant to somebody, and you forget the poignancy of it because you're just trying to pay it forward.
Yeah. So I remember when those do not know, or maybe I used to own Superstar Invitational Basketball, and every year we would be down in Southern California. We'd have about 400 boys, and actually girls came in the next session as well. And we'd have this amazing camp down there, and Coach Ball would come and work. We had a great crew down there and had a good time with that. But I remember I changed the format of the camp, and I changed my style. Now, again, my first job was working for Coach Wooden, and I had a good run with Riley and all these guys. But when I started coaching them, I had to kind of morph my style to meet the kids where they were at, the ones I was coaching, right? And I started with littles, you know what I mean? So if you're a junior college coach, you're a college coach, right? There's not a lot of you guys out there, right? In terms of numbers. How did your style, how did it elevate and change over the years in terms of, you may have mellowed a little bit, but
right.
How does that, give me a little on that? Because I think it's important those that start, especially in the rec space, because that's where you cut your teeth, right? You learn to coach, you learn, I'm not doing that. And you work your way through till you find you, right?
I believe so. Yeah. So my coaching style over the years hasn't changed that much. I wouldn't say, as far as like, I'm still a passionate person. To me, our coaching style is tied to ourself, right? It's if you reflect somebody else, if you decided, I'm going to be John Wooden, that's not you. You know what I mean? If you decided I'm going to be George Carl, that's not you, right? You've got to be, like you said, you've got to meld them and find out what works for you while still maintaining your true sense of self. So I'm competitive. And so that's going to be part of my coaching style. I'm demonstrative at times. I'm boisterous. I'm not going to be the guy that you don't know. Oh, was he at that event? Yeah, no, that's
on the sideline.
That wouldn't be me. So that's never going to be. So it's I would say my person hasn't changed in that way. I'm a high character person. You can if I always tell my players, I'm never going to lie to you, and you're going to be enrolled in the right classes for you to graduate. Those are the two promises I make. If I promise you playing time, you show up out of shape, you don't want to work hard, then I'm either going to break my promise, which I will not do, or I'm going to have to give you playing time when you don't deserve it. So those are the two promises I make, is that, you're going to have the opportunity. So what you do with it from it is on you.
Right.
But yeah, as far as coaching style, I would say, you have to be able to adapt, and that's the evolution is what you're talking about. And I love things a certain way. There used to be things that Coach Fuscaldo would say to our group that maybe my first 2-3 years, I would use those same analogies and same things. And then I'd start to realize, I'm in a public school here. I don't know if I can say these things.
Right.
And now more so than ever, you've got to be safe. I remember my first couple of days at El Molino, it was, no, this is how it's going to be. Right. And you can either do that or there's the door. And nowadays it's more like, hey, you look like you're having a bad day. Why don't you come over here and have a conversation with me? Right. And let's see if we can solve some problems, so that you can leave that baggage on the shelf at the front door. Right. And now you can come in and work on your basketball and compartmentalize a little bit better. But I'd say a little more sensitive to the human these days.
So it's interesting you say that, because I think there's another thing that's changed in your life, and you got 2 kids. So now you wear you wear the dad hat, but you're also right, and then you're also coaching now. I don't know if you're coaching your own kids or not, but I'm curious, has that had any influence or change on your in terms of, again, like I could tell everybody character wise, we're boom straight on, but just in terms of seeing that, and what are you thinking about the people that are coaching? Because I know you're very grateful. If anybody's going to coach your child, you're very supportive and grateful. Although it's got to be challenging at times because you're like, well, there's another way to do that, right? So
Yeah.
you deal with that.
Well, it's if you don't want to commit the time, then you have to trust the person that is willing to commit the time.
Wait, time out. I need you to record this, people. This is so important. This is coming from a college coach talking about the situation for his kids. So say that again. That's powerful.
Yeah. So if you don't want to commit the time, you have to trust the person that's willing to commit that time to teach and to coach your child. I do have so one word, Aaron, to go back to your original question, is one word is patience.
Yeah.
And coach, so it's funny, ironic, and interesting that my freshman year at Sonoma State, I was a 20-20 guy. I didn't average 20 and 20, up 20, down 20. I got to play. So I would spell check Fuscaldo's halftime. He wrote up on halftime and he wrote patience. You guys need patience. And he's looking at me and I'm like confused what's going on. And he goes, what is it, Steve? You don't understand? I said, well, you spelled patience wrong. And he lost his lid and he said, well, I'll learn how to spell it when you guys get some, right? So one thing that my children have taught me is patience.
Yeah.
And I always think of it this way: if you haven't taught them enough times, like there's a certain point where you just don't come out the chute just yelling at them for not understanding how to jump stop. You didn't teach them how to jump stop,
Right.
You didn't teach them what a left foot reverse pivot foot is.
Right.
So you got to teach them before you just jump straight into yelling at them. And then as far as the coaching of my children, I do coach my son's club team. There's a little small travel, right? They go to like from Napa, 20 minutes each direction to go play their games. And then I do that only.
I don't call that travel. I call that commute at this point, right?
Right, exactly.
You're not going to Arizona for one game and New York for another. And we'll
No.
see. That's not what this is about. This is just getting out there to play because you got a small community. I just make it
Marin, Sonoma, Napa, Solano. That's it.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And so, I do have the time in the spring after my season. So I'll help his team then. And then it's a kind of a pay it forward situation where my the friends who run the program will coach him in the fall and in everything. And I learned this from many coaches along the way, but you wear a different hat when you're coaching, right? I'm going to be his parent, right? Indefinitely.
Yeah.
You're his coach during that time that you're with him. So when you question him, don't ask me why you're not playing. Ask him why you're not playing. Right? That's your coach. Or ask her why you're not playing. That's not. I'm your parent. I'm your dad. I love you. Great job out there. I'm glad you shared the ball. Good job rebounding. Great job. If you want to know what they're running, I'm not running. Hey, run an on-ball screen. That's not my responsibility. And I've probably forgotten more than many of them know. But that's not my hat.
Yeah. The hardest part, I think, at times, like you said, is I like the word control, and realizing that it's the kid's journey, not our journey. And it's so tough to not control these things, especially if, like you or myself, we know the right way to do things, our version of the right way to do things. And when you see it not being done, now I can remember conversations with because somehow I can be intimidating. I don't know how that comes about or whatever, but sometimes it happens, right? Where you know your stuff and you're standing on the sideline and you're thinking, wait a second. And the coach is like, oh, what am I going to do with this mess? Right. But I think if you're a parent out there, one thing that I learned from a guy named Stephen Covey, you may recognize the name, is seek to understand before being understood. If your child is playing for them, and like Steve said, this is the deal, then you got to be willing to ask that question in a way that you really want to know. And what I've heard some really good coaches say is, do you really want the answer to this? Because that's a challenge as well, right, Coach?
Well, absolutely. And then the phrase, why me? Why me? No, change it and ask, honestly, why me? Why is this happening to me? There's an anecdote about Kobe Bryant where he airballed, I don't know if you remember, he airballed a shot that would have won the game his rookie year. Yeah. And he's sitting there with his head in his hands in the locker room, and they're asking him, well, what were you feeling at that moment? And he turned and he looked at the person, he said, feeling? this has nothing to do with feelings. I'm trying to figure out why I missed that shot.
Yeah.
Is there a better place on the court I could have got the ball? Was it the wrong, like trying to figure that out, rather than asking, oh, why me? I missed this shot. He was actually asking, why did this happen? So the root cause is what you want to try to fix. And that's the beautiful thing about sports, right? Is it's a safe place to fail.
Right. We're going to talk about failure. We're going to talk about more about youth sports in a minute. We're going to run a spot. As we come back, get a little water in our system and come back in just a minute. So go ahead, Craig. Thanks for running this.
At DPRS Media Co, we don't just create content. We elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family. Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locks. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. And powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Coach Ball from Napa Valley College. Steve, this has been fun as a start point, and now we've got to know each other even deeper, and they're getting to know you a little bit. Now we're going to dig in a little bit because I think it's really important that people get, I always like to make sure that people can take something home, like the nuggets they can carry forward, right? And I think it's so important because, like I mentioned earlier, the youth sports space is really a challenge right now. Kids that are coming up, I got to imagine the kids you get, maybe you're a little uniquely different than maybe what you used to get in terms of maybe what experience they've had and all the different factors. I mean, that happens in life. But I'm thinking of your experience, my experience, your kids' experience, what they've gone through. And now I'm thinking about, so who are the influences you talked about for yourself? But now I'm seeing the influences are coming from with the NIL, right? And I'm seeing influence on social media and all these other factors. So as a college coach and you see these kids coming up, talk about the influence, talk about what you're seeing of those kids that are coming in, because I mean, and now I think you're going to get more and more students that are going to want to come play for you and at that JC level because of what's going on, right? The opportunities are going to change, right?
Yeah, there's with the NIL, just briefly on that, there's so many coaches at the next level, I call it the university level, who are looking laterally for their next player. They're not looking down to the high schools, down to the community colleges. They're looking for someone who's proven that they can score, they can average things. So I think that's a big influence right now. The young men these days, I think, are coming in still with a competitive work ethic. I think the important thing is to find out where the motivation is. If the motivation is to get to a specific level, then when that inevitably doesn't happen, what then? I think coaches say, "What now that it's hard? What do you do now?" And that to me reaches into what is your motivation to do the thing. If it's motivation, if it's a growth mindset where I just want to be better each day, better each day, better each day, I think that's the way that you avoid getting off track by missing targets.
Right.
If you it's great to goal set, but turning the light switch off and leaving the house because I didn't reach that one goal isn't a growth mindset. It's a catastrophic end to that, and you need to realize maybe that goal is a little bit, I needed to adjust it. Maybe it was too high. Maybe there was somebody else who performed better that I have no control of.
Right.
So yeah.
But let me jump in. I want to ask you a little bit more on this because failure is such a huge part of sport. right? And by the way,
Some more than others.
yeah, failure is a huge part of life, right? I mean, that's part of the deal. And the ones that succeed in life are not the ones that just magically everything happens. They're the ones that have fallen down and get up and fall down and get up and thrive and rise back up. So if look, we know Steph can shoot the ball, right? But on any given night, he's going to miss 6 out of 10 shots, right? I mean, that's still pretty darn good, right? So if your kid's out there playing, keep those expectations realistic on those youngsters going forward. How would you suggest, if it's a parent or a coach, to help if the child's not being successful in the mind of whether it's the numbers that you set forward for them, or you got a kid that's playing, high school football and the coach is, breaking them down. At some point, we have to be able to find where that fits, right? And failure is a part of this, but I guess I would say 2 things. One is who sets the failure rate, right? Right, what that is, and then how do we deal with that? How do we address that?
So I think you need to readdress what failure is. I think there's one failure, and it's quitting, right? And I think that anything else is an obstacle that you can learn to overcome. Like we lift weights, right? Or as youngsters we used to, at least. And you put, let's say you're doing the bench press. I put a certain amount of weight on there, and I literally, the phrase that we use in weight training is "go till failure." Right? Why? Because that's going to get you the fastest growth rate, right? So if your failure is what's going to make you have growth, then why are we so fearful of it? To me, the mind is a muscle, right? Like, so if I'm training my body, I should use those same principles, those same physiological principles to training my mind. If I ask my muscles to go till failure, why would I not ask my mind to go till failure? And then I can reassess and I'll be stronger from it the next time. So A, and B, there's a thing called courageous communication, right? I need to be able to ask a coach, and not in a condescending way, like you mentioned earlier, right? I need to be able to have a courageous moment where I drop my pride and I go over and I ask, what is it that I can do? Or what is it, how can I perform better? And how can I fail less, I guess, but you don't want to have it in a negative connotation, right? How can I be more successful at this?
Yeah.
And really, like you said, truly listen if you're ready for the answer.
Right. The thing about that, there needs to be the trust. The coaches that changed my life, from my baseball coach when I was 7 to, all the coaches I had, there was a level of trust that was built that I knew that when I brought something to them, they weren't going to kick me down. Right. And it doesn't mean they weren't going to hold me accountable. Right. But they weren't just going to break me down. And I know there's the mentality of break them down and build them up and that. But there's got to be that faith and that trust that, hey, coach, if I come to you talk about this, you're not just going to just bury me. You know what I mean?
100%. No, that's absolutely. You have to build the trust. And Aaron, the only unrenewable resource we have in our life is our time. So the more time with someone that you spend, the more quality time you spend, the more trust you're going to build. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. So when you think of helping the kids, helping your own kids, helping the students, the ones you coach now, how do you deal with goal setting for them? Like, do you have them involved in the goal setting? Do the coaches set the goals? How does that work? Because I'm curious, especially because for me, when I was coaching the littles, and I'll just give a fun little one. So Mia's basketball team, my daughter Mia, when they were playing, they had this ragtag 16 girls that were on a basketball team. And I had to find a way. First of all, most of them had never touched the ball before, right? And make a team out of this. And then we had to go play. And when you got that, and by the way, the gym was about as big as this room. And it was just, so what I did is fundamental. And then I set goals based on effort rather than result, meaning that what I focused on was I wanted 10 shots up every quarter. Didn't care if they went in. If it's successful, I did care, but I figured if we got 10 shots up each quarter, they make 2 because of luck and 2 because of skill. That's 8 points. Fourth grade basketball, 8, 16, 24, 32. We're going to win a lot of games, right? Yes. And so I had them on the sideline, and they were literally counting on the board. We got 10, and it didn't. If it went over the backboard, the other team thinks we're nuts. But it worked, and the girls fell in love with it. And the funny thing, of those 16 girls, 11 of them ended up playing high school basketball. Yeah. They fell in love with it. So that's one of mine. What do you got for you about goal setting and how you go through that?
Right. So first, one of the basic concepts of goal setting, I don't know if you had somebody on or not talking about this before, is setting SMART goals, right? You want to set specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. So you want it by a certain, a season's a great timely thing. Or to be honest with you, I've done in games, we set a goal of let's give up fewer than 4 offensive rebounds in the first half. So there's something that, and if you do that, if you can keep another team off the glass, you're getting more possessions, you're playing better, you're focused on something other than the ball going in the hoop. So I think that's a huge aspect of it is set goals that are measurable and realistic and attainable, right? And timely. But then as far as like in-game goals, I've often done, I coached my son's AAU team, and we were getting destroyed because we weren't handling the pressure, and we had broken a drill. We had done a drill in practice this week, and I said, well, guys, you forgot all about the drill that we did. You thought it was just a drill, and nothing I do is just a drill. It always pertains to the game, right? And so I said, just do this for me. Go back to the drill. We only get 2 dribble max, and then we reverse the ball over here against the press, and they've all shifted this way, and we're going to have layups. So we were down by about 22 points at halftime. So we talked about it at halftime, and I said, don't worry about the score. Don't worry about the score. You've probably lost this game. Don't worry about it. So let's just focus on getting better at this thing that is costing us this game. And they went to it, and then I called the timeout with like 4 minutes left, and I said, guys, have you looked at the score? They said, no. I said, you're down by 4. Like, you just stopped turning the ball over. And they looked, and then they got nervous again. We didn't win the game, but the point was that when they weren't focused on that, right, they were focused on the process rather than the outcome. There's less anxiety. There's more control over the outcome of it. Right. So I think those are the keys. Is the locus of control, right?
You know, it's funny. It reminded me a little bit of when George Karl and he was coaching the Warriors, and I remember they were struggling, and he was the guy that was there's a right way and a wrong way. There's nothing else. It's either done right or it's wrong, right? Coach, if you're watching, I love you, but it's right or it's wrong. That's it. So he says, this is what we're going to do. And they went out there, they called a timeout, and they came out, and they were a mess and the whole deal. So he finally says, okay. So it was towards the end of the quarter. He said it again. I remember I said behind, I said it again. And they went out and they executed it perfectly, but they didn't score. He called the ball went out of bounds. He called immediate timeout, and he gave them all high fives.
Yeah.
He says, that's what I'm talking about.
It's 100%, Aaron. It's with basketball, right? A lot of we get so outcome oriented that did the shot go in or did the shot go out? It doesn't matter. It doesn't, because that shot went in doesn't make it a good shot, and because that one didn't go in makes it a bad shot. Like, it's what is the process? And that's one of the biggest things that you can do as a young coach, a coach of young players or young, even into the pros, like you said with Coach Karl, is be so process oriented that the results will take care of themselves. And your good friend Rick Barry used to say that, right? He talked about his best free throw shooter of all time. All my job is to take care of my routine. If the ball leaves my fingertips and it goes in or out, has no bearing on me. I did the thing repetitively that I was supposed to do. Right.
And it's funny because if an NBA coach in the middle of an NBA game can use one of his important timeouts to teach that lesson, if you've got those little kids out there, this is the type of stuff that I think in Parks and Rec and all these, you have these avenues to teach, and it's such an important possibility of helping kids learn to grow, because what we've talked a lot about is not success, it's really about handling the adversity, the failure, and all those other factors, right?
And helping them pave the road of a mental outlook on success as well. I know that you, Aaron, you used to always talk about the information sandwich, right? And you always want to end. You say, hey, this is whatever. This is A, this is B. Here's how you fix it. Leave them with a positive mindset. And there was a Giants game 20 years ago now, and I still remember this. They came out to the pit to talk to the pitcher in the 9th inning. Said, hey, this guy's a low ball hitter. Keep it up in the zone. Blah blah blah. Don't jam him up. Don't let him get his arms extended. And then the last thing he said to him as he left for the dugout, he said, don't forget to back up home plate. And he tapped him on the butt. I'm like, don't forget to back up home plate. You just said I'm going to strike the guy out. Why am I backing up home plate? So now that seed of doubt is in my mind, right? So always leave them with the positive so that their mindset is moving forward. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Because, more often more often scared than hurt, right? We
Right.
worry so much.
Right.
So you missed a jump shot. There's a lot worse losses in this world than a missing a jump shot.
A lot of leaders out there, especially in the space or business, whatever it is, when you're going and you're talking your team up and whatnot, it's so important not to leave them, like you said, on that last piece. Yeah, well, when you fail, what's your mindset going to be?
Right.
Hey, let's focus on where we're going, right, and do that. I will say what my son taught me in 4th grade. Mason taught me something which is pretty cool, which is the difference between and but. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like he said, Dad, I was coaching his team, and he said, you said that, but da. And he goes, Dad, that's a but is a minus sign and is a plus sign. And I still was like, okay, what are you talking about, kid?
Yeah.
And he said, so then we talked it out. And so if you're coaching out there, you always want to build, right? You always want to build up. So this is going to happen and rather than but. And
right.
It sounds nuts, but words matter, right?
It's words have meaning, right? And that's a perfect example of it.
That's funny. All right. So I'm going to bring you back to now you're coaching your AU kids how old are they? How old is your son?
My daughter's 6. She's not a basketball guy yet. She tells me.
Okay. She's not a basketball guy yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my son is 11 and he loves to shoot.
Okay. Well, he's one of my people.
I'm going to send him to Aaron.
Send me. We'll get him started. Okay. So let me ask you a question. Give me, if you would, if I'm a young parent or I'm a Parks and Rec person and I'm going to be running whatever, there's a long list of stuff that I'm supposed to teach these kids. Give me some of the fundamentals, because I got to be honest. If you spend too much time learning the tricks of the trade, you never learn the trade. They can watch YouTube all they want and all these fancy stuff, but if they can't jump stop and pivot in the fundamentals, right? And I think we focus too much on, like you said, scoring in the game rather than how to play the game. So give me some tips that maybe what you're teaching your kids and what you think these guys out there that are teaching basketball, teaching the fundamentals, what should they be working on?
Right. So to me, the 4 biggest fundamentals in the game of basketball: starting without traveling, stopping without traveling, right? Passing and catching. If you can't do those things, there's no offense that you can design where there's not somebody's got to start, stop, pass, or catch, right? So if they can't do those things, then what's the point of trying to teach them the flex? So I think I like to spend a lot of time on those things. Posture and balance are huge. I don't care. We talk about over specialization of sports. I don't care which sport you play. You need to have flexed knees. Your butt needs to be down. Your chest needs to be up. I don't care if you're a shortstop, a middle linebacker, or a shooter. You've got to be able to do those things. So I think, like I said, those 4 things: starting, stopping. So we do some jump stop drills. We add in a basketball, so it's not as boring as it used to. We used to have to do jump stops and pivots without basketballs, right? Because we couldn't afford basketballs. So now we starting, stopping, and then passing and catching. Every shooting drill, change your mindset. If you want to get a triple double, you want to be Magic Johnson, you want to be LeBron James, get these triple doubles. Shooting, you got to be able to score the basketball to get your 10, but you've also got to be able to pass. Every shooting drill is a passing drill.
Right.
You've also got to be able to rebound the ball with 2 hands. Every shot in a shooting drill can be rebounded with 2 hands. So, those are triple threat drills, really.
Yeah.
Those are triple double drills. Sorry.
Right.
So you need to work on those. So I think that incorporating those, but then also having fun. Like we do things like they dribble the basketball. I let them dribble between their legs when they're younger with my son's team.
Yeah.
And then they go in for layups. So if you can dribble, change direction with your dribble and make a layup, you're going to be just fine in youth sports.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's funny. Coach Wooden used to, when we did his camps way back in the day, he used to call those fancy dribbles. You know what I mean? Like a spin dribble or behind the back. That's a fancy dribble. But first you got to learn the basic fundamentals, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So when you think about how to keep the game, because to me, at the NASCAV Athletics, we teach RSBQ, rhythm, speed, balance, quickness. So every program we run, they start out with those fundamentals. So that's how they warm up every day. So when kids come through our program and they get to okay, at least they've been introduced to it, right? But now let's take the next step, which is, we have talk, teach, play, which is our system: 3 minutes of verbal instruction, 6 minutes of skill, 6 minutes of play. What do you suggest for keeping it fun for these kids? Because as I do, earlier you mentioned the word passion, and it kind of like that's a green light in my head for these kids. But if they're doing this stuff and they're not having fun, they're not going to want to keep doing it, right? So how do you interject fun into that?
Well, I think you have to have some aspect of play.
Yes.
I mean, even at the college level, we have probably once a month, I'll set the balls out. They won't realize we're doing it. They're doing their dynamic warm-ups. I'll set the balls in the middle and I'll say, all right, dodgeball.
Nice.
All the balls are there in the middle, and they pick up balls and they start playing dodgeball. That's their warm-up. That's their dynamic warm-up. So they're moving around. They're being agile. They're down in a stance. Some of them can throw better than others, but they're all moving and warming up, and it's a fun thing, right? Always having some aspect of, competitiveness when done right is fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think we don't need to avoid competitiveness. So have them, and we don't need to punish losing, right?
Yeah.
We need to have fun and compete and understand that competition is part of that whole process. So I think always incorporating an aspect of competitiveness, because then it brings you back to the playfulness that started you in the game.
Right. I remember when I was doing a little work with Santa Clara University, and I was helping on a couple of things in the basketball team down there, and the coach would do it and make sure that literally every rotation there was a competitive challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever drill they were doing, he had his manager turn on the music, and when the music came on, they knew that was compete time and play, and they were having fun and dancing and balling up, and there was no way you could coach over there. And the music was so loud, and they were just doing it, and the energy was unbelievable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Create that fun, right?
Absolutely. And I don't, I've had a number of friends who have been soccer coaches, and in the English system, right? They've got the different class structure system. And one of the things you learn there is you reverse engineer your practice plan, basically. Like, I want them to be able to run a screen and roll, right, properly. So what am I going to do? Our warm up is going to be this, because this is the body movement that they need, right? I'm going to have them do this next, and then they're going to have pairs where they're going to do the screen and roll, and then we're going to finish with 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 that begins with a screen and roll. So it's all leveled up so that it is, there's no wasted movement in the practice plan. So I mean, at Parks and Rec, I have an hour and 15 minutes with these 10 and 11-year-old boys,
right?
Once, maybe twice a week. Like, how much stuff am I going to be able to put in? So I need to be as efficient as possible. So my warm-up drills ideally would start to emulate my finishing drills.
I love how you've talked about it before, when we've talked about you combining as many skills into each drill,
mm-hmm.
so that they get the fundamentals, and then you come out the other side. And play is play, and competition, like you mentioned. If I'm going to play you checkers, I'm going to try to kick your butt. Right. And then when we're done, we fist bump, reset, and let's go. Right. If you create that environment where, like you said, it's not as big of a deal. It's more about, did you really give it your all? I mean, I know that's a little bit esoterical to talk, did you give your all? But really, isn't that what we want? And that's where they can be more successful in life, right?
Aaron, we have two main, we call them non-negotiables.
Okay.
One is maximum effort. We can't even have a conversation about the next thing unless you're given maximum effort, right? And then the other one is communication, and that's communication on the court, communication before drills, during drills, after drills. Just to give coaches an idea of a way to incorporate multiple skill levels. Back to your original topic, there is we'll do things like when I do a drill, and we've got a half court maybe, right? And there's 3 hoops. There's the main hoop and there's 2 side hoops. Well, why am I doing a layup at this line and then jogging to the end of that line? There's another hoop there.
Right.
I'm going to get my ball out of the net, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to do a layup at that hoop as well. So just try.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, there we go. You're back.
Okay. Hopefully I froze with a good face.
Yeah, you good face. You were pretty good. All right. So speaking of, okay, so you mentioned the word specialization earlier, and I want to talk a little bit about that, because I get a lot of questions on that, and I tell everybody, where I'm at, play everything. But I want to talk from two perspectives, if you would, please. Put your dad hat on, talk about your kids, and then talk about your coaching hat in terms of the athletes that you see coming up that you want to be able to have the chance to be able to coach.
Sorry, Aaron, I missed that. That broke up a little bit there.
We'll try it again. So real quick for everybody. So you're going to wear 2 hats right now. Your dad hat, talking about specialization for your own kids. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then your college coaching hat, looking at athletes coming up. Are they the same? Are they different?
Right. Go. So to me, specialization is a dangerous thing, right? Because there's this 1% that maybe they do need to specialize. You know what I mean? Like a kid who is 14 years old and he's 6'11", maybe we do start to specialize at basketball, or maybe there's a kid who's, more muscular and needs to focus on this sport or that sport, or she's got long arms. Maybe volleyball is a great opportunity for her. But a lot of these sports, if you don't train in a way that does multiple movements, like you talked about, the rhythm was the one that stuck out in my mind. What was it? The RS?
Rhythm, speed, balance, quickness, RSBQ.
Love those. If you do those, tell me a sport that you don't need one of those in. Right. So if you allow yourself to focus on just one movement, let's say I'm going to be a pitcher and I'm 11 years old and I'm going to be a pitcher. Well, you've pitched how many innings, how many seasons by the time you're done? Your elbow, there's kids getting Tommy John surgeries in high school. Like,
it's bad. It's really
those
sad.
sorts of things are just not good. And plus, like you said, it's fun. The games are supposed to be fun. So if you can have fun with your friends, and maybe I get that fun part out when I do soccer, and I'm a little more serious when I do basketball. To me, that's a good balance. For myself, I played soccer and basketball in high school. I played football my freshman year, and I decided it was not in my knee's best interests to do that. So I let my son decide. Like, here's a soccer camp. There's a basketball camp. Well, I want to do a basketball camp. We got right across the street. We've got a school. So there's a basketball court there. Well, I want to go ride a bicycle. I want to shoot a basketball. So can I go do yes. Right. So he's self-selecting which activity he prefers to do. He loves to read. So if he wants to read a book, go read a book. Yeah. So there's that as far as from a parent's perspective. And that's just me. And I had my career. Right. I had my basketball career. It was great for me. It was right sized for me. Yeah. It came to a logical end. There was nothing else for me to go on to do. So those who can't play anymore, coach, right? Those who can't coach, referee.
Hey, now, hold on. All right, look, we've only got a couple minutes left. But I want you to talk about, because I think it's important, if you're a parent out there, to hear from a college coach. When you look at the specialization of a kid coming up to play for you versus someone who's played multiple sports, and again, I know every child's different. I know everything's different, but is there a general mindset that you want to roll with for us?
No, I mean, just it's whatever you're doing at that moment, put yourself into it. I don't think that it's not necessary to over specialize too early. You're going to have a journey. You're going to get something out of all of those sports. Hockey players, football players, going to be a little bit tougher. Volleyball players going to be a little bit longer, whatever. But have the experience. What percentage of these young men and women are going to be professional athletes, right? Like a 1% chance. Right. And before that, as my old physiology of exercise professor used to say, you had to choose your parents very wisely first. Then you've got a 1% chance.
You got to explain it. So yeah, if you're 5'4" and you want to be a pro basketball player, that's an uphill battle, right?
Right. It's going to be there's certain rules that apply to him, and it's not fair. Right. And not everybody gets a ribbon, unfortunately, but it's that's part of the process. And that's, again, back to goal setting. Like, reevaluate what is important. Did you have a growth mindset going in? And did you continue to get better at what you're doing? Like, I had a great experience. Did I play in the NBA? No. Did I play overseas? No. Did it shape the human being that I am today? Absolutely, without question.
Absolutely.
And that, Aaron, just to jump in really quickly, sorry. That brings me to something that Doug Earle used to tell us was, there's nothing innate about sports, right, that builds character. It's that environment that you're in, right? So we as coaches, you guys have done 200 episodes in 6 months. You've touched more human beings in the last 6 months with your message than I have my entire career. Yeah. So the point is, go along those lines.
No, I love it. Well, and it's funny, I'm ready to drop the mic when you talk about Doug Earle, man. Are you kidding me? Character, right? Yeah. Big. So if someone wants to come play for you, or someone come and watch the game, or someone wants to find out what's going on with Coach Ball, or all those different things, how do they go about doing that? Where should they reach out?
So my email address would be one way, and that's a lot more direct, is the sball for Steve at napavalley.edu. You can follow us on Twitter. I believe that one is at NVC Basketball. Our Instagram is at NVC Hoops.
And it's NV, like Napa Valley.
Napa
NV.
Valley College, right? And then we live stream many of our games for basketball, volleyball, baseball, all the sports that can be streamed. We stream those through our YouTube site as well on Napa Valley College.
Great. Well, I know that I've already gotten messages are coming in. My phone's blowing up. The people are like, Coach Paul, let's give him a hi and this and that. So we'll talk about that off the chart. But I appreciate everybody for spending time with us here on the Daily Parks and Rec Show. The Youth Sports Mastery. This doesn't happen without the support of so many people behind the scenes and wonderful guests like Steve who want to come in and put their time and energy in. You mentioned something about camps. I'm a camp guy. It's middle of summer. You got kids, man. Camps is a great place to let them fall in love with playing sports and get out the best you can. If you're looking for a camp, check us out at nationalacademyofathletics.com. And if you're interested in us maybe coming to your neighborhood and bringing our youth sports programs, because we're getting a lot more influx on that, again, go to nationalacademyofathletics.com. If you want to reach out to me, find me on Facebook and all the other wonderful social medias. And I appreciate you being your coach and look forward to seeing you. And I look forward to watching the game this season. So
yes, please do. Thank you all. And thank you to everyone who works parks and recs around the world. You touch so many lives. You don't even realize how you're affecting these students. So please continue the good work.
Every day we get to talk, teach, and play. Nothing better. Take care, everybody.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co, the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co, LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day. Every career is a choice, but few careers let you touch lives. Not once in a while, but every single day. Step into a park on a Saturday morning. You'll hear children laughing on the soccer field, families gathering for a picnic, seniors walking the trails, finding health and friendship. And behind every smile, every memory, is a Parks and Rec professional. We don't just mow fields, we grow confidence in young athletes. We don't just build playgrounds, we create safe spaces where childhood thrives. We don't just plan events, we design moments that anchor generations. Think of the coach who teaches patience, the director who champions equity, the staff member who sees potential in a child no one else believed in. Every day, Parks and Rec professionals shape character, preserve beauty, and strengthen community. And the path isn't easy. Budgets are tight, resources stretched thin, but the reward, unmatched, because what you give comes back in legacy, in healthier communities, in lives forever changed. So why dedicate your life to parks and recreation? Because here, your work never ends. It lives on, in laughter echoing across playgrounds, in green spaces preserved for the next century, in the young professionals rising to lead tomorrow. This is not just a career, it's a calling. It's a legacy. It's Parks and Recreation. a message from the Parks and Rec community.